might be innovation. And thereby we're able to develop hypotheses that matter. And the relevant metaphor here is chess. I saw an interview with on CNN with Garry Kasparov, arguably the greatest chess player in history. And Wolf was asking him about his activities in Russia. He's leading the pro-democracy forces, a very, very brave guy, brilliant guy. And afterward, Wolf spoke with a chess journalist, and he asked, what made Kasparov so special? And the journalist said, no matter how confusing the situation on the chessboard, no matter how tense the tournament situation, or how tired or exhausted or emotional or upset he was, he could always find the three things that mattered. And that's the key to strategy deployment. What are the three things that matter? It's about emphasis. We understand we have to do 50 things. There is routine work, we must make the numbers, but strategy is about identifying what to emphasize. And this invariably is a process of condensing, not 100 slides, but one piece of paper. I think of Einstein. He won the Nobel Prize for a paper on the photoelectric effect. Anybody know how many pages it was? It's 3 pages. It's 10 years working in the Swiss patent office and thinking about it, and then he wrote it and condensed it. It's an expression of what we're talking about. So how do we develop the plan? Here's the process very quickly. Step 1, we have to define the problem. That's extremely hard to do. As Jim said in his talk, I would think about things for half an hour, and then I'd realize we were asking the wrong question. So what business need are we trying to fill? That's a hard question. Second step, why can't we close that gap? And I've shown a fishbone diagram here. That is one of many tools we might use. Analytical tools like fishbones, value stream maps are invaluable, of course, spaghetti diagrams, what have you, and also that go-see, that intuitive, tacit knowledge gained by sensing the atmosphere in those places I described. Once we've done that, we're in a position, hopefully, to identify the top 3, like Garry Kasparov. And then we can make a hypothesis that hopefully has some guts. The left-hand side of the paper is our grasp of the situation. The right-hand side is our hypothesis. And as Dan said earlier, we're running experiments. Every annual PDCA cycle, every weekly PDCA check adjust is part of the experimental process. And probably our hypotheses will prove unsound. Doesn't matter. We've learned a tremendous amount. We'll continue to refine. We'll just keep getting better and better and better and better. Now, the obstacles here, the first one is not defining the problem correctly, as I said. Second one is jumping from 1 to 4, 1, 4, 1, 4, 1, 4, 1, 4. Third one is not focusing on those top 3, but having 20 things on the paper. As I said, let's press all the buttons and hope for the best. Now, here's a very quick image of how an A3 expresses this picture. Top left corner is what problem are we trying to solve? Middle box on the left is what is our reflection on last year's activities? What does our gut tell us? What does the data tell us? And hopefully it's focused data, not 50 KPRs. Step 3, what is our grasp of the situation? Based on this business need, based on this reflection, what do we need to do? What does our instinct tell us? If we zoom out and see the entire chessboard, what must we do? The action plan on the right reflects, the right-hand side rather, reflects how we will implement our hypothesis. And the bottom right corner is what might go wrong and how we'll handle it. And we know things will always go wrong. No plan goes according to plan. The purpose of the plan is to tell us when we're off the plan. Again, we're running experiments. Now, the next step is, once we've defined the plan, is to deploy the plan. And that entails translating level by level. So each section looks at true north, what we're trying to achieve, looks at our mother A3s, as we call them, and say, okay, now what can I do to support? What are the things that we can emphasize in our part of the battlefield, if I can use that metaphor? So we ask questions, as several speakers mentioned. We apply the Socratic method. We ask questions. What do you think? On what is that based? What assumptions have you made? What if those assumptions weren't true? Do you think we're at root cause here? How might you test? How might we pilot this hypothesis so we don't roll it out across the company at great cost and then find it's ineffective? So thereby we translate level by level, and we have a tree of necessary and sufficient activities in the ideal condition through this process we call catchball. So let's have a look at what this tree looks like. So we begin with our definition of true north. What are we trying to achieve? Now, answering that question entails answering some precursor questions. Who are we? If you asked Kodak 15 years ago, they might have said we're a film company. If they answered it today, they'd probably say we're an imaging company. It's fundamentally different. What do we believe in? Now, why is that important? Because if you don't understand who you are and what you believe in, you will lack constancy of purpose. You'll lack that ability to ride out the highs and the lows, that tenacity, year after year after year after year after year, we're going to get better. You break a hockey stick over my head, I'm going to smile at you and say, we're still going. Right? That kind of image. If you don't understand your values and who you are, you can't sustain. Now, the second level here is our mother A3s. And as we'll see, we have key thinkers who develop hypotheses around our focus areas. Now, here comes the translation. The next level, let's say it's general manager level, entails looking at the key thinkers' policies or strategies and figuring out what does it mean for us. It's translation. It's not Soviet-style proliferation. This is a tree that is necessary and sufficient. It's not a mangrove with a gazillion things to do. Each level, as you can see, translates so that at the front line, each person, each section has a couple of things that they'll work on, a few things to emphasize. Okay? And obviously the failure mode here is not doing the translation, is allowing this mangrove to proliferate. And the syndrome I see a lot is you pretend to give us a meaningful plan, we'll pretend to implement it. Right? Now, in order for this process of translation to happen, and in order for us to have meaningful hypotheses, we need something called a deployment leader. Toyota, they call it a chief engineer. I like the term key thinker. Breakthrough requires cross-functionality. It is a lateral process, as Jim showed. It's not a vertical process. In any industry, if we want to reduce lead time in a hospital, we've got to have alignment from all the sections in that pathway that the patient follows. In manufacturing or construction, we're making houses. If we want to break through in water leaks, we've got to have alignment, people doing the foundation, people putting in the blocks, people putting in the frame, people putting in the windows, people putting in the trim. Breakthrough is inevitably cross-functional, and unit efficiency does not equal overall efficiency. Therefore, we need these folks we call key thinkers. And again, they develop the hypotheses. They play the role of Kasparov, if you will, in our organization and identify the three things that matter. Here are some of the qualities they must have. There's a wonderful scene in Lawrence of Arabia. Have you seen that movie? Where they're going across the anvil of the sun, and it's this terrible desert, and they get through it and discover that one of their party has fallen off his camel, and everyone says, well, he's going to die. It is written, he's going to die. And Lawrence says, no, we can't let him die. And they said, no, it is written, he's going to die. And Lawrence gets on his camel, he goes back into the anvil, and he brings him back to great fanfare, and he says, nothing is written. For the deployment leader, nothing is written. Well, our changeovers have always taken 4 hours. Why not 20 minutes? But our prototype cycle time has always been 6 months. But we've always designed machines this way, difficult to change over. But we've always designed packaging that way, difficult to change SKUs. We had a fellow say to me a few weeks ago, you're giving us permission to challenge how we design products, how we design machines, how we schedule. Exactly. Nothing